Okay, so I'm going to do a bit of a live commentary, if you like, on my thoughts when I'm looking at the new UI stuff here when it comes to the Annunciator panel. Great that they're doing this. I think it's a really good improvement, especially for some ships where you've got, relatively small MFD sizes. So I've got a little bit of feedback though, and just first of all, my background, I've been in the aviation industry for nearly 25 years now. I've worked on military aircraft that entire time, and I've got a wide variety of experience coming from aircraft like the F-111. I've worked on Hornets, Super Hornets, and I've also worked on 737s. So I've got a bit of an idea of what I'm talking about, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. So when it comes to this sort of thing, the one thing that stands out to me straight away when it comes to an Annunciator panel is that these are all visible all the time. Like the whole time the Annunciator's panel is visible, or there are all these actual cautions or warning lights are visible, even when they're not lit because there's something wrong. So the way that they do things in commercial and military aircraft, at least, is that less lights, the better you are. So if you see a light, that means that there's something wrong. And when there's something wrong, you should take notice because there's a light there, you should take notice. So the way that these are displayed all the time, that doesn't really make much sense to me. It really should just be like a blacked out version of what you're seeing there, and actually even show something similar to what I'm talking about here. So these lights down here are kind of like an Annunciator panel as well. What I would see normally, I suppose. And see how there's two halves, like this is fully lit and this top half here is lit, this bottom half is not. How that bottom half is not lit is how you would expect these to be when there's nothing wrong. So that's just the first bit of feedback I've got. So lots of lights is bad, no lights is good, and that's something I think that CIG could do better in that instance. Just a bit of candid feedback while I'm looking at too. The way that these parts of the ship flash when they're being hit is very distracting. They should just go back to it just changing colours as the damage comes on. So anytime that you get a light on your Annunciator panel coming up for an associated fault or a degraded system or whatever it might be, there really needs to be also an associated tone and another light that's associated with it. And this is a biggest bit of feedback I can give. Master caution. So Annunciator panels are great, but you don't always look at them. Normally you're looking up here, you're looking out to the horizon, you're looking at your target, you're looking at the things that you're not trying not to hit, and sometimes you can just literally miss that the lights come on. So I think a good bit of feedback is that put a master caution somewhere that's visible. Now that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be another light necessarily, although that wouldn't be too bad. But if it's going to be a light, it really needs to be up somewhere like this, so it's really, really, really visible. Or, that said, it could go up here, like where the old cautions used to go. Now I'll quickly show you what I'm talking about. So this is DCS Hornet, and in DCS Hornet, they have a master caution light. Okay, so you can see here, this is the Annunciator panel on a Hornet, or one of the Annunciator panels. And you can see how they're blacked out because there's nothing wrong. So if there was something wrong, these would light up. So let's just put the battery on. So you can see here how the lights have lit up because the battery switch is on, and the flight control electronic set it's got a fault. It's degraded in some fashion. This here is the master caution light, and when that comes on, you'll get an oral tone that comes along with it. So you heard that sound then, that's the master caution. So a master caution tone brings your attention to the master caution light, and then you would start looking for what the caution was. So on a Hornet it's a bit different. On a Hornet it will display the cautions down here on the DDI, but if it was an Annunciator panel, it's the same type of thing. It's bringing your attention to it to have a look and see what's gone wrong. Caution here, park brake. And you can see here that was the master caution light coming on. Master caution comes on the same time as you get the caution down here, the same time as you get that tone. So it brings your attention down to that to find out what's wrong. Master cautions, when you see them, the best thing you can do, or the first thing you need to do, is find out what went wrong. Look for your other associated caution light or advisory or warning or whatever it was. But you also need to reset it, and the reason why you reset it is because if something else goes wrong, then you need to see the master caution come on to bring your attention to it again. Usually you just push the master caution light to clear it. In Star Citizen, that could be a keybind, I suppose, but I think maybe if that wasn't practical, have it come up and only stay on for, say, 2 to 3 seconds, and then it should automatically clear. That's just a thought I had for that, because obviously not everyone's going to want another keybind, maybe. But yeah, I think master caution up here on the HUD, or another separate master caution light that's closer to the center of your vision, because this area here, that's your most important area when it comes to vision. All this other stuff is peripheral.
We're going to show in the panel information about heat. We're going to display power, weapon, and thruster heat. We're going to display information about low power produced.
Okay, so having the Annunciator panel lights show your heat, like as a heat gauge, is not ideal. The reason being is that it really needs to be much clearer as to what is actually overheated. So for your thruster heat, which thruster is overheating? Top right, top left, your main thrusters, which one? And same with weapons. Weapon heat, yeah, that caution's fine, but it needs to bring up something to give you more clarity as to what has actually gone wrong and what you need to do to fix it, or how you can work around it. So what I would suggest is, when you get a degraded thruster, like from heat, or a degraded thruster or degraded weapons from heat, is that it brings up the associated page on the MFD, so showing what the problem is. So if your thruster heat comes on, an associated status panel showing all your thrusters on here would come up, and the actual affected thruster would flash, or something like that. There'd be some way to bring your attention to what was wrong. So that's something I would definitely do. That said, the heat thing, if it's going to be as regular as it is at the moment, where every time you seem to do anything you overheat, no, that's just going to be annoying. But that definitely needs to happen in some way, shape or form for both weapons, thrusters and power. For anything that has anything to do with heat, that can overheat, having a caution light come on is great, but that doesn't really tell you the whole story. So you need an associated page to come up to tell you actually what went wrong.
By the power plants, we're going to show the status of the shields. Also going to warn the player about proximity warnings, tell the player if their quantum actually failed.
So proximity warnings, again, another good idea. I don't think that should be the end of it though. Again, it needs to be proximity warning, but then something else to show you which direction. Is it left? Is it right? Is it up? Is it down? Is it front? Is it back? Like obviously front you should be able to see, but some sort of other way of showing the player or the pilot actually where the thing is that they're going to hit. Just saying you're close to something, but if you can't see it, like if it's behind you to your left or behind you to your right, or unless you've got head tracking on, you can't see unless it's directly in front of you. So yeah, that still needs to be associated with that as well, whether it be on the radar, it gives you an up or a down or a left or a right or whatever it is, or displays actually the thing that you're going to hit on here. But yeah, it needs something else to go with it.
During combat, if there's someone targeting us, or if there's a missile on their way, or if the ship just has some kind of malfunction and a cooler is failing, for example.
So the idea that it gives you a missile warning and a radar lock warning, awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome source. Thank you. That's an excellent idea. And especially the radar lock, that's really, really cool. Would be even cooler is if the radar lock lit, and then on your radar here, it would actually show you which one of the contacts on your radar is actually locking you. Same with missiles. If it missile warning saying that the missile was on its way and it's coming for you, highlight the missile on the radar so that we can try and avoid it, and be able to work out the best timing to pop our countermeasures. But those two things there, great. Really, 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 really like that. It could do though, again, with that associated lights for the, especially radar lock and missile warning, they need a tone associated with them, and they need to be totally different to the master caution tone. Not annoying, but urgent. So if you get a radar lock, you get a definite, obvious tone to say that you're being tracked by someone you don't want necessarily to be tracking you. And missile warning should be really like, hey, pay attention, you're in trouble, you might die. So yeah, hopefully that is some useful information for the people doing the Annunciator panels at CIG, and you might get something out of it, and hopefully some of the ideas or some of the thoughts I put forward there might influence the direction for the Annunciator panels coming.